What's up, everybody? I'm Stan, and welcome to Detail Comics, where we go over comics in detail. This is iRate Reviews, the show where I go over a comic book, its story, its art, give you my impressions, and let you know whether it's something to go back to the comic book shop for or not. So make sure you subscribe to get more of these every single week. Also, make sure you subscribe for the drawing on October 31st, where I'm giving away a copy of Batman White Knight #1, signed by Sean Gordon Murphy. But let's talk about the book that we're reviewing, and that is Batman the Merciless #1. So this is the latest iteration of the Dark Knight's kind of one-shot series, which are going to be doing introductions and really kind of giving you development into these characters that are going to play such a huge part in DC's metal. So overall, these Dark Knights are really kind of dark visions of Batman himself, and he's taken over or corrupted the power of his fellow Justice League members. But this one's kind of particular and it's a little bit more interesting. So let's just dive right into the story. So the way that we begin is that we actually see an opening with Bruce Wayne holding Wonder Woman, holding Diana, and it appears that she's absolutely, dead at this point in time, and he finds that he is overwhelmed because evidently this Bruce and this Diana, they've had a relationship, and we find that we're on Earth -12, and that's going to play a bit more important part as we get into the later parts of the story. But immediately we jump into the present day where we're actually in Langley, and we've got all these different heads of organizations. We've got Steve Trevor, he's the head of Argus. We've got General Lane, Lois's dad. We've got Amanda Waller from Task Force X. We've got the head of SHADE and all these other kind of different organizations that are trying to figure out what to do about these Dark Knight scenarios. These evil Batmen that are kind of taking over the world at this point in time. They've already lost numbers of cities. So what they do is they decide, or at least General Lane decides, that Valhalla, a nuclear bomb that's got all these different kinds of particles like Kryptonian, radion kind of things going on, this Valhalla is an answer because it's something that could decimate even Superman himself. However, it's not necessarily the situation that Steve Trevor would want to be in. He would want to be a little bit more merciful. And these other people don't really know what to do because Amanda Waller's already sent in the Suicide Squad with no results. So it's just one of those things where they end up in a serious conflict, and it just gets a little bit more amped up because we find that the Merciless is bearing down on Langley, has landed on the first floor, and is just working his way through there, offering clean deaths to people, deaths that could only be achieved with a sword. And then ultimately he just starts devastating this entire thing. So, in the scuffle, General Lane pushes the button, and, we all of a sudden have these, space cowboys. There's a person in space with a cowboy hat on there. We have these guys, and they're headed to bomb Langley so that way those things can be taken care of. We also have a little bit more backstory of what happened with the Merciless when he arrived here. He saw this temple that the Court of Owls had really set up that shows the mantling of Batman, the history, what he's gone through, what they have put the Wayne family, or Bruce Wayne himself, through over this time, so that way they could bring about Barbatos and turn him into a portal, those kind of things. So he was brushing up on a little bit of this history. But the real key is the origin of the helmet and the powers of Ares that Bruce Wayne gets. It turns out that Ares had developed a helmet that was going to amplify his powers by 100-fold. So Bruce and Diana were the last of these people that were waging war on all this evil that was being brought about by war across the entire globe. It was the war to end all wars. And Bruce found, or at least he thought, that he could control it. This was something that, with his code, with his rules, he was going to be able to handle it, and he was going to be able to take those kind of things and make that power his own to devastate Ares. And what we found is that it corrupts him. Unfortunately, it as a man, even though he has this ironclad will that we saw in Dawnbreaker, the corrupting influence of war, the power, those kind of things, it stripped him of his code, and unfortunately he goes on the war path, so to speak. And as he's about to storm the mounts of Olympus, he's confronted by the Batman Who Laughs, who's got like 2 little Easter eggs, including a little multiversity book inside the Robin's hands. So it's a little funky there, that just breaks you a little bit as far as the scene's concerned, but shows him that his reality is about to end, and that there's a place where he can go there, that there's a Wonder Woman that is alive, where he can still see her, this love of his life. And that's where we kind of get closer towards the end. The bomb drops on Langley and everything's absolutely devastated, and when the shuttle kind of flies across, they see not only that the Merciless still lives, but that the members of this squad, this cabal that were trying to decide the fate of the world, they're praying to this god of war, this Bruce Wayne Batman god of war. And that's where we get our twist. We get our twist because Bruce feels so bad that Diana wasn't dead and that she tried to take the helmet of Ares from him, so he had to dispatch her. So it's just like, oh, that's such a brutal twist. You know, if they were in love and then he, dispatched her, it's just like the corrupting, like that's where his sin comes. It's not, the biggest fear isn't necessarily the loss of Diana. The fear is of his own hubris taking over. And so it's just like he is so confident in his possibilities. He is so confident in his ability to control this godlike power that he's overcome by it. So, Batman or Bruce Wayne, he falls victim to his own hubris and his own kind of beliefs that he's above these kind of even immortal powers. So I thought that was a really interesting twist on the entire aspect of it. And a lot of people would probably be asking, it's just like, oh, well, why are Diana and Bruce Wayne together? It's just like, well, this is kind of interesting because Earth -12, which is the dark parallel to Earth 12, which is actually the DC animated universe. So the DC animated universe with Justice League Unlimited, Batman Beyond, all these animated shows have taken place in that animated universe. So that means that, when you see like those little screen caps of like Diana kissing Batman on the cheek and stuff like that, that means that developed into a little bit more romantic relationship over time. So, we're talking about Sylvester Kyle and Selina, the parallel in Earth 11 in The Drowned, and that was, his driving force. This was, him getting into that other relationship that was kind of alluded to inside these, Justice League Unlimited cartoons, and then that kind of blossoming over time. So I thought that was really kind of cool that this was the environment that this was all happening in. So you basically got Batman the Animated Series being corrupted, turning into a grizzled old Bruce Wayne powered by the wrath and fury of war, and he invades our planet. So I really like that. The art. The art is probably the best part of the book. I'm really a fan of Francis Manapul. Even though he works completely digitally, I find that his use of lines and his colors and things like that really bring a vibrancy and a life to these actual books. So as far as the art's concerned, I can't really find too much fault with it in that case. I did kind of get taken out of the action just a touch when I noticed that there was like what seemed to be like, a thing for dummies book, and then the multiversity kind of outline for Grant Morrison, from his Multiversity run. So like seeing those kind of things in the hands of the Robins just made everything feel a little, it took me out of the moment. It removed the verisimilitude of the actual world. It made it less believable, because why would a character be carrying around something from our universe inside this other universe? So it's a very interesting perspective when it comes to those things. Overall, I am really enjoying Batman the Merciless. I really think that I like it the best. It's probably right up there with Red Death. I think Red Death was pretty fantastic. The kinetic energy that was kind of put in that place, and the idea of Batman sacrificing one of his friends, Barry. They've had just phenomenal conversations. They've known each other for a long time. Sacrificing him to gain the Speed Force was a pretty dark turn, but ultimately I just like this ruthless, kind of merciless Bruce Wayne Batman, especially when I know that he's derived from Batman the Animated Series, which is it's ridiculous to even think about. So Batman the Merciless #1, definitely a recommendation for me, definitely a great book, definitely something you got to pick up, especially if you want to keep up with Dark Knight's metal. So, but those are my comments, those are my thoughts on Batman the Merciless, and I want to know what you guys think, so hit me up in the comments down below and we can start that conversation. Don't forget to subscribe in order to get entered to win Batman White Knight #1, which is going to be getting pulled on October 31st, so I'm going to be making a little bit video for that. And then, yeah, if you like what you see, hit the like button. Don't forget to subscribe to get more news, reviews, and commentary on comic books, comic book movies, comic book TV shows and games, and anything and everything inside the world of comics.